Ciao, my friends. Meldina the Research, and I'm here with Alina Golo, the real estate attorney, and we're going to cover Illinois Realtors exclusive buyer representation, exclusive right to purchase contract. So, without further ado, I'm gonna have take Alina take over, and we'll go through this contract really fast, so you can be easy for you how to fill it out.
So I just want to mention, first of all, hi everyone. I want to mention that this agreement is what we know currently. So basically, we don't know the final NAR settlement terms that will be finalized down the road. So the agreement that we're covering today is the agreement as exists now, and there may be changes that will be implemented once we know what the settlement terms are.
Very good. So anyway, Alina is going to start off with just going because we don't have too much time to explain this. We don't take too much of your time, but we want to go briefly step by step and explain, as you can see, the contract. So this is the dual agency disclosure and consent included. And if you start off in consideration of, this is going to be your brokerage company and as a sponsoring broker. After that, the broker to act as the agent of the buyer for the purpose of identifying and negotiating the acquired real estate for, and they will be the buyer. So you need to put the buyer name. If there's 2 or 3 buyers, it should be all inserted in there. And then take it over, Alina, section 1.
Yeah, in section 1, you have 2 options. There's an exclusive representation and an exclusive right to acquire. So with those options, I would recommend the exclusive right to acquire option because basically, as a broker, you would get paid whether or not buyer acquires the property with you or without you. So basically, if you look at the exclusive representation, there's an exemption that says buyer reserves the right to purchase on buyer's own without assistance of the sponsoring broker or any other broker. So I think it's important when you're signing an exclusive agreement with the buyer to make sure that you're representing the buyer no matter what. So that's why I recommend exclusive right to acquire in this particular contract. And in the blanks, the only blank there is to determine what area you're going to be showing properties for that buyer. Obviously, it may change because sometimes buyers think, oh, these are the suburbs that I'm interested in purchasing in. But as they explore what's available, price points and whatnot, they may change their mind. So I think it's important to update this agreement if the area that you're showing the properties in changes to make sure that you get paid for the work you're doing. This is also the section where the sponsoring broker will designate what agent is going to be working with this particular buyer. So the agreement is really with the brokerage, and then as in the past, a specific agent from the brokerage is designated as a actual broker working with the buyer, showing properties and so forth. So that's where the specific broker's name would go in that blank under section 1.
Very good. Section 2, the terms. We need to always check only one box. There's 2 boxes in section 2 term, which means how long is this contract for. The first section is contract shall be effective until a certain amount of time. It's 11:59, and you're supposed to put a date in. So if it's a 1 day, it's supposed to be 1 day. If it's 3 months, 1 year, whatever that is, automatically contract will terminate at that date that you put in. This contract is irrevocable and can be terminated prior to termination date only by written agreement of the parties. So if that is it's going to be terminated besides this date, it has to be a written agreement. He'll tell me if there's any different, but I'm trying to read off what says here. If this termination date exceeds 1 year from the date of execution, buyer shall have the right to terminate each year thereafter, with giving 30 days written notice. If within 30 days after termination, and you're supposed to put the blanks how many days in there, so it could be 1 day, whatever you negotiate with the buyer. Buyer purchases any property to which buyer was introduced by the buyer designated agent. The buyer agrees to pay sponsoring broker the compensation provided for Section 3. However, no compensation will be due to sponsoring broker if during this protection period buyer enters into separate buyer's representation agreement with another broker. So you want to explain this a little bit better, Alina?
So, I mean, basically, it's this paragraph allows the buyer to have a choice. So the choice is, you know, whether to work with the broker that they have an agreement with or enter into another agreement. But all of the rules that we have learned about, you know, contacting or trying to have the buyer switch over to a different broker while they're under an agreement with an agent do apply. So this basically makes sure that the buyer doesn't owe two separate commission agreements, but only to the broker that they have an actual agreement with. So that's my reading of this particular section.
Right, and the second section is they only have to check one. So that you either this first thing we just read or the second one, this contract shall automatically renew on. So this is automatic renewal end of each succeeding year. So that means the contract as expires will renew, and you need to just check one of these two. So this is the first one has a termination time, and the other one is automatic renewal. Contracts more than 30 days and no less than. So if you're going to not have attention to not to renew this contract, the buyer they needs to give a 30-day or less notice. That's what I understand, right?
Yeah, so in this situation, in the first option, if you want the contract to continue past the initial term, then you have to sign basically an additional agreement stating you're renewing for X number of days. And the second option is automatic renewal, wherein the buyer still has an option to not renew, but in this situation, they would have to give you a written notice at least 30 days prior to the renewal. So if your contract is expiring on June 30th, by May 31st, the buyer would have had to give the broker notice, written notice saying, I don't want to renew this contract. So it's either ongoing or more proactive on behalf of the broker.
Yeah. Just remember to check only one. So basically, it has to be checked either one of these two. That's the Section 2 term. Section 3, it's compensation for services. Check one. And that is very tricky. You have to be very careful how you fill this out. I mean, the entire contract has to be very filled out properly. But this is about compensation. And my understanding is, like, for check number 1 is sponsoring broker and buyer expects the sponsoring broker compensation for services will be paid by seller or seller's broker for sponsoring broker acting as a cooperating broker. However, if sponsoring broker is not compensated by seller or seller's broker, or its amount of compensation paid by seller or seller's broker in at least off. So you need to decide or terminate this with your client, a percentage of your compensation of the purchase price as defined in a local or regional MLS. Then buyer agrees to pay sponsoring broker the difference between. So the thing is, you have to understand that whatever the brokerage agrees to pay you, if you agreed with your broker a certain amount of the percentage, the difference the buyer will compensate you with. Now, this is how I understand this paragraph. And the second option is buyer agrees to pay sponsoring broker. There's a percentage that you agree with of the purchase price or the dollar amount. So it could be percentage or dollar amount as a flat fee as a compensation for sponsoring broker services provided to buyers acquisition of real estate. So basically you have a choice to either charge your client and negotiate the terms as a percentage or the flat fee. So that's the second option. The section applies if the buyer enters into contract to acquire real estate during the term of the contract or the protected period, and such contract results in closed transaction. Any modification to this section, including compensation to be paid to sponsoring broker, shall be by separate written agreement to this contract. So anything to be changed or added on has to be separate agreement. It can, we cannot scratch or change the terms. That's how I understand, right?
Yes, and the important difference between the two options that are available in this Illinois buyer representation agreement is that in option one, which is more likely the one that most people will be choosing, it allows for seller to be compensating all or portion of your commission versus the second option, the agreement is just for the buyer to make that payment. So those are the two variations in this particular form.
And then section number 4, that's where we are right now, right? Okay. Buyer designated agent's duties. So let me see if I can open that up a little bit better so you can see that. Section number 4, and that to use buyer designated agent, best effort to identify properties listed in multiple listing service that meets the buyer specifications related to location, price, featuring, and amenities as identified on the attached buyer informational checklist. List here and source of other than multiple listing service buyer would like buyer designated agent to research. You want to explain this a little better to the agents?
Yeah, I think this is just so if you're planning on marketing or rather researching other areas besides just the MLS, this is where you would look to list where else you're going to be looking. So whether it's, excuse me.
Bless you.
So whether it's going to be, maybe it's a private MLS network, maybe there's other networks you're going to be reaching out, this is where you would let the buyer know where else you're going to be searching for properties so that the agreement is active no matter where it is. So, and it just kind of provides a list of services that you are going to be providing to the buyer. So, looking for the properties, arranging for inspections, advising on what price to offer, what price would be a good price to accept, advising on what would be a good pricing for the home based on the comparative market analysis, negotiating the contract, obviously, and assisting buyer in determining what terms to offer, and any other services that you feel that you're providing to the buyer. Maybe it's helping them with meeting their appraiser at the property or helping in some other way. This is a place where you can list that information.
Very good. And then I will just go through briefly sectional sponsoring broker duties, buyer duties. This is all self-explanatory. You just want to have your client read this and you can explain them in yourself. Representation to the buyer, section 7. And then we have section 8, disclosure of consent to dual agency. So they have to sign that if they agree to be a part of the dual agency. That's also self-explanatory. What license can and can do, that's part of the contract, what you're allowed to do as a dual agent. If you go to the page number 3, here we go, we're moving on forward. Okay, that has to be initialed by the buyer if they agreed. Previous representation, section, the failure to close. This is all part of the regular contract. To the point that, let me see if you can read this yourself, but we just want to make sure you understand the filling out the blanks. And then the signature page, you want to explain the signature page maybe?
Yeah, so with the signatures, the buyer has to obviously sign the agreement, and all the buyers that are going to be signing the contract need to sign this agreement. And the agreement has to be accepted by the sponsoring broker. So the brokerage, managing broker of the brokerage is who would first sign the buyer representation agreement, and then as well as then designated agent can sign as well. But the main agreement needs to be signed by the managing broker. And it looks like at the bottom, it also talks about that buyer would be authorizing the brokerage and the designated broker to be contacting the buyer via email, phone numbers. That's where this authorization comes in at the very end. That's just something that the Illinois form put in. I don't believe that every form has that, but obviously, again, all the forms will be updated once the NAR settlement comes into play with their final terms.
Yeah, so there's multiple forms out there. We are just using one of the forms and they're going to be changed, obviously. So we are just making sure you understand we're not here to give you any legal advice. And we are not representing, any of that. We just want to give you help out with filling out the forms. And then, for any other questions, you definitely want to, consult your attorney. But this particular form is exclusive right to purchase contract with dual agency disclosure. We also have one without dual agency disclosure. So depends what your client is willing to do. If they're willing to help you, allow you to work with the dual agency or not, that's the form you should be using. And then there's multiple forms out there with different associations, so you can pick and choose. But this is just really important to sign with every single buyer, from now on. And I'm sorry I'm frozen. I just wanted to get this out there. I got a nice smile. My screen is frozen, but Alina Gallo, the real estate attorney I use and I love dearly. She's very passionate about her work. And highly recommending her. And any questions you have, definitely you can reach out to her team. Alina, what is your phone number?
It's 312-456-8007. Again, it's 312-456-8007.
Yes, and definitely we can help you out with any of this. This is just for internal use for the clients or for the our brokers. And any questions, call me as well, 773-491-9045. And have an amazing day. And sorry about me being frozen. Bye.